All right, can you guys hear me now?
Okay, so it wasn't me.
What is up, you godless bastards? Welcome back to The Rage. I am the Raging Atheist, and I'm gonna do something that I've never done before.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Preaching to the Choir Ministries.
That's right, I'm gonna respond to G-Man. Now, G-Man's been on the channel a couple times live. I've never actually responded to him. I usually leave that for Dragnot. Dragnot has crushed G-Man and ran him through the gutter. But, why not partake in some of the laughs? And G-Man talked about a subject that I'm familiar with, a subject that I deal with when it comes to people like Jesus is Lord. And that's the subject of slavery in the Bible.
The Bible also says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3, that there's going to be a falling away before the man of sin is actually revealed. And this is going to take place mainly because human beings are getting away from the idea that we have sinned against God, and now we want to accuse God, and we want to be able to attack his behavior instead of actually looking in the mirror and dealing with ourselves.
Like, for real, G-Man, honestly, I don't give a fuck what the Bible says. The Bible gives circular prophecies. There's always going to be people going around not believing this silly shit. Whether it's end times, middle times, beginning times. People didn't believe this. And I have looked at myself thoroughly. I'm good with myself. The problem is, believers of God aren't good with me, and they don't even know me. They call me things like reprobate. They threaten me in my life. They threaten the life of my daughter. I had one Christian tell me that it would be better if my daughter were dead so she could go to heaven now before I could make her a reprobate such as I am. That's why I attack the morality of the God that they devote so much of their passion, the God that they have allowed to twist them into the hateful creatures that they are. Now, if you believe that human morality came from said God, well then that God's morality should be put to the question.
Okay? And we see a lot of that going on in these last days, particularly in the secular community, where I just got finished watching a video done by Godless Engineer, and he was saying things like, slavery was wrong, but didn't articulate why it was wrong.
You shouldn't have to articulate why slavery is wrong. The mere fact that you own a human being, that's wrong. We're human beings. We're sentient creatures. We each have individual rights, individual meaning. You can look at us and say we're each an individual universe. To own another human being is just wrong. Even if you're good to said human being, the fact that you own that human being is morally wrong. Now that, I guess, would be subjective. That is subjective to my perception. In my perception, in my view, owning another human being is morally wrong. Now, to somebody that would want to own a human being, I guess to their perception, it's not wrong. But I don't care about their perception.
Particularly, he said biblical slavery was wrong without articulating why it's wrong. It's always an appeal to emotion. We talked about that in my previous video on the topic. But they don't give you a reason why.
Biblical slavery was wrong because they owned other human beings, and it was systemic. It was systematic within their culture to own other human beings. If you wiped out a city, you could take those women as your wives, preferably if they were virgins, to make sure they hadn't been soiled by those sinners or however they saw them. I don't think they actually saw them as sinners. But biblical slavery was wrong because they would kill that person's family, that person's city. They would destroy their city. Sometimes they would kill their livestock as well. And then they would take them as their wives, as their sex slaves. That is morally wrong. And the story claims that God told them to do so. That would make God morally wrong. Not to mention they had a system of indentured servitude, prisoners of war that became slaves. Slavery was very systematic in that culture. Now, I'm not comparing that to antebellum slavery. I understand that those things are very different. That within the Israelite culture, Slaves were treated a lot better than other cultures at the time. Almost every culture in the Mediterranean had slavery. Israel wasn't alone. It was very common. Doesn't make it morally right.
2 points. Number one, modern day slavery and what we see God condoning in the Bible are not identical and are not the same.
Nobody's saying that they are identical. Nobody's saying that they are the same. You want us to say that. We don't say that. You say that we say that, but we don't say that.
Number two, what I want to accomplish here today is to show the lack of understanding that the secular community has regarding what slavery is. Again, they define slavery as a human being owning another human being. Slavery, if there's only one word to describe slavery, and only one word, and that is bondage.
No, bondage describes bondage. The word slavery describes slavery. Now, bondage could be used to describe some forms of slavery, sure. But slavery means slavery. Slavery means a human owns another human. That human is slave to that other human. That's what slavery is. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I mean, like, bondage could mean something very sexual and kinky and something that I might be into.
Bondage is a universal definition and usage for the word slavery. Okay, you can use servant, but I think bondage is a little bit more appropriate if we're going to go across the board.
Like, no, what the hell are you talking about? No, slavery is slavery, bondage is bondage. I might get into that tonight.
I got the paid plan for StreamYard now, so now I can put my little video clips on this. So Vecco was right. I learned it fairly quick. I'll be doing that throughout this show so that you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know, like, nothing to do with the video that I'm doing here, but I thought it was funny. He had it right there in the middle of everything. I'm like, why not use it? It was funny. And G-Man, like, StreamYard is very basic, not hard to figure out. Not an accomplishment to have some pride over.
But people need to understand that there's a difference between modern day slavery and what happened in the Bible and why it happened in the Bible. And it has to do with culture. It had to do with the time that they lived in.
Yeah, I kind of preemptively covered that. But, that's like, he's got to straw man that. He's got to gaslight that. He's got to say that we don't acknowledge that even though we do. In fact, I can almost guarantee you I've looked into this far more than G-Man has, because if G-Man looked into it at all, he would understand that the slavery in ancient Israel, it was fucking slavery.
Again, most of the people that are strawmanning or misrepresenting the topic are people who knows jack squat dilly about the ancient world. They are comparing our world today with the world that was back then, and that's not fair.
Projection much, G-Man? Like, again, you're the one that probably doesn't know shit about this. One of the people you're going to be responding to in this live stream, I do believe, is Dr. Josh, who is an PhD scholar expert on this, and just an all-around good dude.
That's not right to the people that was alive in the ancient world. Let's deal with the ancient world. Let's deal with the nation of Israel, Egypt, Babylon, Moab. Let's deal with all of those nations and let's see what they believe about the topic. And then let us think about whether or not we can say it is moral or immoral.
I mean, yeah, do that for fun, but it really bears no relevance to the conversation at hand. The conversation at hand is about the morality of your God, Yahweh, or Jehovah, whatever the fuck you want to call him. I don't care. The conversation is about it and its morality. It wasn't the gods of those other nations. It was the God of Israel. And it commanded the Israelites to take slaves. It commanded the Israelites to commit genocide. It committed genocide itself with this whole global flood bullshit. That is the conversation, that even though this is an ancient culture, that it was being led by God himself. And it was God's culture. It was God's people. And if that is the God that's going to dictate your life here in the modern age, well then yes, that morality is up for fucking question.
Because one of the things that the atheists just don't get is that if you're going to have, especially if you're going to speak up for black folk being slaves in America, you had better make sure you know what timeline you're talking about.
Like, this might be one of the weirdest things I've ever heard G-Man say, but I haven't really watched G-Man a lot. But that's just like really weird, because of course we understand the timelines. Of course we understand the difference. And if you're going to speak about slavery in America, then I would hope that you would understand that. Oh yeah, that's right. I mean, like, G-Man's the one that conflates the two, because he says that we conflate the two when we don't.
I can differentiate the ancient world with the transatlantic slave trade. I can differentiate the ancient world with some of the things that I see going on today that I know atheists can't go into detail about because they haven't studied the topic. At least some of them anyway. I don't know about all of them.
I mean, most of the atheists that are talking about slavery have studied the fucking topic. I have studied the topic. And I'm just like a layman. I'm nowhere near a scholar like Dr. Josh. You know, maybe the problem, G-Man, is that you're not talking to the scholars or listening to the scholars or even trying to find out the truth about what happened in ancient Israel, you know, because that just might damage the fragility of this religion that you seem to want to flaunt so much. I don't know, I'm just rage, I'm a dick. You can come back on the channel anytime and defend yourself. Alright, before we end the video, gotta give that love to my patrons. You guys are the shit. You are getting me through. Thank you for your support. And be looking on Patreon, because there's going to be a lot of, you know, text comments. I'm going to try to keep you guys informed of what I'm doing. A lot of Patreon content coming. And like I always do, got to ask y'all to hit the thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe. Share me on your social media. Comment in the comments section below. Your interaction is the only way this channel is going to grow. If you like the videos, share them. As always, I'll see you soon.